The Catholic Church, with its rich 2.000-year history, now finds itself at a defining crossroads. Pope Francis, who has led the Church since 2013, has been a transformative figure, redefining its mission through a focus on humility, social justice, and environmental stewardship. However, as his papacy nears its conclusion, the question of his successor looms large, sparking a global conversation about the future of the Church. With recent statements from Pope Francis suggesting that his time may soon come to an end, many are looking ahead, wondering who will take the reins and continue his legacy of reform. This moment of transition offers an opportunity for reflection, both within the Catholic community and beyond. The qualities of the next pope are of great importance, as the Church faces significant challenges in the 21st century, including declining attendance in the West and growing influence in the global South. Who will lead the Church forward into a new chapter, one that continues Pope Francis's emphasis on compassion and inclusivity while navigating the complexities of a rapidly changing world. In this article, we will delve into the legacy of Pope Francis, explore the potential candidates to succeed him, and consider the broader implications of this pivotal moment for the Catholic Church and its global community. As the Church enters a period of transition, the question of leadership is more pressing than ever, and the choices made in the coming years will shape the direction of Catholicism for generations to come. Since ascending to the papacy in 2013, Pope Francis has emerged as a defining figure in the modern Catholic Church. With a papacy that has spanned over a decade, his influence extends far beyond the confines of the Vatican, shaping the global discourse on faith, justice, and social responsibility. Known for his deep commitment to humility, inclusivity, and service to the poor, Pope Francis has sought to steer the Church through a period of profound change. His leadership has not only been marked by theological reform, but also by an embrace of social issues, particularly those affecting the most vulnerable in society. One of Pope Francis's defining principles has been his emphasis on simplicity and humility. His decision to forego the lavish papal apartments in favor of the modest Vatican guest house was symbolic of his approach to leadership. From the start, he made it clear that he would not be a distant, inaccessible figurehead, but a servant of the people. His lifestyle and words resonated deeply with those who felt that the Church had become too insular, too focused on institutional power, and too disconnected from the everyday struggles of its followers. By choosing to live in simplicity, Pope Francis set a powerful example of how the Church could return to its roots of service, embracing a more humble, compassionate role in the world. Pope Francis's commitment to social justice has been another cornerstone of his papacy. His encyclical Laudato Si, 2015, which focused on environmental degradation and the need for global action on climate change, was groundbreaking. The document not only called for a theological reflection on humanity's responsibility to the planet, but also framed the environmental crisis as a moral issue. By positioning the fight against climate change within the context of Catholic teaching, Pope Francis emphasized the need for solidarity with the poor, who are often the most affected by environmental harm. This approach resonated with a wide audience, transcending religious lines and prompting international conversations about the ethical implications of environmental policies. Pope Francis's deep concern for the marginalized and excluded has also been a hallmark of his papacy. He has consistently highlighted issues such as poverty, inequality, and human rights abuses, calling for the Church to be a voice for those who are often silenced. One of the most memorable moments of his papacy occurred during his visit to the Philippines in 2015, where he comforted survivors of Typhoon Haiyan. Beyond offering words of solace, Pope Francis mobilized aid and global resources to help rebuild the devastated areas. His actions demonstrated that his concern for the poor and suffering was not just rhetorical but rooted in tangible, transformative efforts. The Pope's efforts to engage with global political and social issues have not been without controversy. His open criticisms of capitalism and global economic systems that exacerbate inequality have often put him at odds with powerful political and business elites. Yet, his unwavering stance on the importance of economic justice and his advocacy for a global redistribution of wealth have won him both admiration and criticism. Pope Francis has consistently called for a radical change in how the world views wealth, power, and success, urging a shift towards greater empathy and social responsibility. Furthermore, Pope Francis has addressed sensitive issues within the Church itself, particularly regarding its stance on women and LGBTQ+ individuals. While the Pope has been cautious in his approach to some topics, his statements on these issues have sparked important discussions. His famous words, "Who am I to judge?" in reference to LGBTQ+ individuals, marked a significant shift in the Church's tone, opening the door for more inclusive conversations about faith and sexuality. Though he has not fully endorsed changes to church doctrine, his openness and willingness to engage in dialogue on these issues have been seen as progressive by many. As Pope Francis's papacy continues, his legacy is already shaping up to be one of profound transformation. His approach to leadership, characterized by humility, compassion, and a commitment to social justice, has made a lasting impact on the Catholic Church and on the world at large. The Pope's legacy is one that seeks to return the Church to its core mission of serving the poor, healing divisions, and advocating for justice in a broken world. In this sense, Pope Francis has not only redefined the role of the Pope, but has also set a new standard for what it means to lead with empathy, compassion, and a deep concern for the common good. As the Church looks ahead to the future, Pope Francis's example will undoubtedly continue to guide and inspire those who seek a more inclusive, compassionate, and just Catholic faith. His emphasis on reform, dialogue, and social responsibility will remain central to the questions surrounding his successor and the direction the Church will take in the years to come. Whether or not his successor will continue his progressive vision or chart a different course, Pope Francis's legacy of reform and compassion has indelibly marked the history of the Catholic Church, offering a powerful model of leadership for generations to come. As Pope Francis nears the end of his papacy, the question of who will succeed him has become a topic of intense speculation. The Catholic Church stands at a critical crossroads, with both immense challenges and unique opportunities for transformation. The next pope will inherit a church that is witnessing a significant shift in global demographics. Declining attendance in Europe and North America contrasts sharply with the vibrant growth of Catholicism in Africa and Asia. The next pope will need to embody a vision that addresses these changes while remaining true to the Church's core values. Among the potential candidates, three prominent figures have emerged as strong contenders: Cardinal Pietro Parolin, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, and Cardinal Peter Turkson. Each of these cardinals brings unique qualities, experiences, and visions for the future of the Church. Their leadership styles and areas of expertise suggest distinct approaches to guiding the Church through a rapidly changing world. Cardinal Pietro Parolin, currently the Vatican's Secretary of State, has earned a reputation as a skilled diplomat with a calm and strategic approach to international relations. Known for his role in negotiating the historic 2018 Vatican-China Agreement, Parolin has demonstrated his ability to navigate complex geopolitical issues. He is seen by many as a figure who would bring stability and continuity to the papacy, focusing on institutional diplomacy and maintaining the Church's relationships with world leaders. On the other hand, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, Archbishop of Manila, is widely admired for his pastoral approach and deep connection with the faithful. His work with Caritas Internationalis has solidified his standing as a passionate advocate for the poor and marginalized. Tagle's emphasis on humility, social justice, and inclusivity aligns closely with Pope Francis's mission to build a church that is more outward-facing and attuned to the needs of the marginalized. His ability to inspire young people, particularly in Asia, is a significant asset as the Church faces declining attendance in other parts of the world. Lastly, Cardinal Peter Turkson, a Ghanaian prelate, represents the growing influence of the Global South within the Church. As the former head of the dicastery for promoting integral human development, Turkson has been at the forefront of efforts to address issues such as climate change, economic inequality, and poverty. His work on Laudato Si', Pope Francis's encyclical on the environment, highlights his commitment to social justice and global solidarity. Turkson's leadership in these areas has earned him respect as a candidate who would continue the Church's efforts to tackle the most pressing global challenges of our time. The next pope's leadership will need to address the intersection of faith and the complex social, political, and environmental issues that shape the world today. Each of the three candidates represents a different facet of the Church's future, whether through diplomacy, social justice, or global advocacy. Their distinct leadership styles will influence the Church's direction and its relationship with both its global community and the wider world. The election of Pope Francis's successor will undoubtedly be a momentous event that shapes the future of the Catholic Church, as the world waits for the College of Cardinals to make their decision. The qualities of the next pope will determine how the Church navigates its challenges and embraces the opportunities of a changing world. Whether the next pope continues the bold reforms of Pope Francis or takes a more cautious approach, his leadership will have profound implications for the Church's role in a rapidly evolving global society. As the Catholic Church stands at a pivotal moment in its history, with Pope Francis nearing the end of his papacy, the lessons learned from his tenure offer critical insights for the future of the Church. Pope Francis's leadership has not only reshaped the Church's role in the modern world, but also sparked profound reflection on what it means to be a global religious community in the face of societal change. The next pope will inherit a church that is at once deeply rooted in tradition and urgently in need of adapting to the realities of the 21st century. The lessons of Pope Francis's papacy, coupled with the experiences and challenges that the Church has faced under his guidance, will undoubtedly inform the decisions and actions of the future leadership. Pope Francis's legacy is rooted in his commitment to social justice, humility, and compassion for the marginalized. His approach to reforming the Church, though sometimes met with resistance, has highlighted the need for the Catholic Church to be more inclusive, more open to dialogue, and more in tune with the struggles of the poor and vulnerable. His call for a Church of the poor has been central to his vision for the future, emphasizing that the Church's primary mission is not only to uphold doctrine, but to be a source of solace, support, and advocacy for those who are suffering. This message has resonated deeply in regions where poverty, inequality, and social unrest are widespread. The next pope must continue this work of social transformation, responding to the needs of a global church that is often divided by economic, political, and cultural differences. One of the greatest challenges the next pope will face is bridging the gap between the global North and South, two regions where Catholicism is experiencing vastly different trajectories. While Europe and North America are witnessing declining church attendance, Africa, Asia, and Latin America are experiencing a surge in Catholicism. The next pope will need to be a unifying figure, one who can transcend geographical and cultural divides while maintaining a coherent message of faith and unity. Pope Francis's emphasis on accompaniment, the idea of walking alongside people in their struggles, has been central to his pastoral approach. The next pope must embrace this ethos, ensuring that the Church's message resonates with people across all continents. Another important lesson from Pope Francis's papacy is the need for the Church to confront the pressing global issues of our time. Pope Francis's encyclicals, especially Laudato Si, on the environment and Fratelli Tutti on social friendship, have called attention to the interconnectedness of humanity and the planet. These encyclicals stress the urgency of addressing climate change, economic inequality, and the erosion of social bonds. The next pope must continue to advocate for these issues, ensuring that the Church remains a moral voice in addressing the most pressing concerns of the modern world. Given the growing influence of the Global South, which is disproportionately affected by climate change and poverty, the next pope will also need to champion global solidarity, emphasizing the need for a collective effort to address the challenges of our time. In addition to these external challenges, the next pope will face the internal challenges of the Church. Pope Francis's efforts to reform the Vatican's bureaucracy and confront the issue of clerical sexual abuse have been met with mixed reactions, with some praising his boldness and others questioning his effectiveness. The next pope will inherit the task of continuing this work, ensuring that the Church becomes a safer, more transparent institution. This includes not only addressing the abuse crisis, but also reforming the structures of power within the Church to make them more accountable and less prone to corruption. One of the most important lessons from Pope Francis's leadership is the need for openness and transparency. Throughout his papacy, He has consistently called for the church to be more open to the world, to engage with people of all faiths, and to listen to the voices of those on the margins. The next pope must continue to foster this openness, encouraging dialogue between faiths, engaging with the scientific community, and addressing issues such as migration, refugees, and human rights. Pope Francis's focus on synodality, the idea that the church should be a listening and participatory community, offers a model for future church leadership that emphasizes collaboration, humility, and shared responsibility. Lastly, the next pope will need to navigate the complex relationship between tradition and reform. The church is deeply rooted in tradition, and any significant changes must be approached with care and sensitivity. However, as Pope Francis has demonstrated, the church must also be willing to embrace reform when necessary. The next pope must strike a delicate balance between preserving the rich traditions of the church and responding to the changing needs of a global community. This balance will require a deep understanding of the church's history, its teachings, and the pastoral needs of the faithful. In conclusion, the future of the Catholic Church hinges on the lessons of the past and the willingness of its leaders to confront the challenges of the present. Pope Francis's papacy has set a powerful example of how the Church can be a force for social change, environmental stewardship, and global solidarity. The next pope will inherit this legacy and must build upon it, ensuring that the Church remains relevant, compassionate, and committed to serving the world's most vulnerable. The future of the Church will depend on the ability of its leaders to embody the values of humility, service, and reform, responding to the needs of the people and the world in which they live. The role of leadership within the Catholic Church is one that has evolved significantly over the centuries. From its origins with the apostles, the Church has witnessed a continuous transformation in how its leaders are chosen, how they are expected to lead, and the qualities that define them. Leadership in the Church is not simply a position of power, but a profound responsibility to guide a diverse global community of believers, uphold the teachings of Christ, and respond to the challenges and crises of the contemporary world. As the Catholic Church faces the prospect of a new leader after Pope Francis, the qualities of leadership within the Church become an essential point of reflection. Pope Francis has brought to the papacy a distinctive style of leadership, one that emphasizes humility, service, and reform. His leadership has challenged traditional conceptions of what it means to be the head of the Catholic Church. The Pope, for instance, has chosen to live in the Vatican guest house rather than the lavish apostolic palace, symbolizing his commitment to a simpler, more humble way of life. This simple act, among others, has defined his approach to leadership. For Pope Francis, leadership is about serving others, not elevating oneself. His focus on the marginalized, the poor, and the vulnerable has resonated deeply with Catholics and non-Catholics alike, setting him apart from many of his predecessors who were often seen as distant or inaccessible figures. Under his papacy, the Church has been encouraged to confront not only doctrinal issues but also societal challenges such as climate change, poverty, and inequality. This broadening of the scope of the Church's role in global affairs has forced many to reconsider the nature of leadership in the Church. Pope Francis's leadership is a clear reflection of the Church's mission to be present in the world, to speak out against injustice, and to work for a more compassionate and just society. His leadership has made clear that the Pope must be both a spiritual leader and a moral compass, offering guidance not only in matters of faith but also in the social, political, and economic spheres. Looking beyond Pope Francis's tenure, the question arises, what type of leader will the Church need in the future? What qualities should the next pope possess to continue the work begun by Pope Francis and meet the demands of an ever-changing world? Reflecting on leadership, it becomes clear that the challenges faced by the Church require a new type of leader, one who is not only theologically knowledgeable but also deeply attuned to the changing realities of the world. Leadership within the Church today cannot be defined by traditional authority alone. The role of the Pope has always been viewed as one of supreme spiritual and doctrinal authority. But Pope Francis has challenged the Church to expand its understanding of leadership. The next Pope will need to continue this redefinition, moving away from the idea of the papacy as an institution of power and instead embracing the role as a servant leader. The next leader must be able to inspire trust, foster dialogue, and bring people together in unity. In a world increasingly divided by political, cultural, and religious fault lines, the Pope must embody a leadership that bridges these gaps and creates a space for peaceful discourse and mutual respect. One critical aspect of leadership that Pope Francis has demonstrated is his ability to engage with people from diverse backgrounds. Whether engaging with political leaders, religious leaders of other faiths, or ordinary Catholics, Pope Francis has shown that leadership requires empathy and an openness to listening. This ability to listen, to be present with people in their struggles, and to offer compassion has made Pope Francis a beloved figure among many. The next pope must possess this same openness, recognizing the value of dialogue and engagement in a world where polarization and division are common. Moreover, the next pope will need to be a leader who is not afraid to make difficult decisions. The Church faces many internal challenges, particularly regarding issues such as clerical sexual abuse, the role of women in the Church, and the need for financial transparency and accountability. The next pope will inherit a church that, in many ways, has been deeply wounded by scandals and a lack of trust. The new leader must have the courage to address these issues head-on, ensuring that the Church remains a moral authority in the world while also healing the wounds caused by past mistakes. In addition to tackling internal challenges, the future leader of the Church must also be someone who can navigate the changing religious landscape. The Catholic Church is undergoing a demographic shift, with vibrant growth in Africa and Asia, contrasted by declining membership in Europe and North America. The next pope must be able to engage with the faithful in all regions of the world, understanding the unique challenges faced by the Church in different cultural contexts. The next leader will need to be someone who can connect with young people, as well as those on the peripheries of society, who feel disconnected from the Church. Pope Francis has made great strides in reaching out to younger generations, but the next pope must continue to build bridges, especially in areas where the Church is struggling to maintain relevance. The next pope will also need to continue Pope Francis's work of addressing global issues such as climate change, economic inequality, and migration. The Catholic Church is uniquely positioned to speak out on these issues, and the next pope must be a moral leader who can advocate for justice and peace on a global scale. Leadership in the Church is not just about preserving tradition. It is about responding to the world as it is and meeting the needs of the most vulnerable. Pope Francis's leadership has shown that the papacy has a vital role to play in the broader social and political discourse, and this role will only become more important in the years to come. Finally, the next pope must also be a leader who understands the importance of collaboration. Leadership in the modern Church cannot be an authoritarian role, but one that fosters a spirit of partnership and shared responsibility. The next pope will need to continue the work of synodality, the process of listening to and involving all members of the Church in its decision-making processes. This inclusive model of leadership, which emphasizes consultation and discernment, is one that Pope Francis has championed and will be essential for the future of the Church. In conclusion, reflecting on leadership within the Catholic Church calls for a deep understanding of the qualities that make a leader effective, compassionate, and just. Pope Francis has redefined the papacy by emphasizing humility, service, and engagement with the world. The next pope will need to build on this legacy, facing the challenges of both internal reform and global transformation. The future leader of the Church will need to be someone who embodies the values of compassion, humility, and courage, while also being a visionary who can adapt to the evolving needs of the faithful. Leadership in the Church, as exemplified by Pope Francis, is not about power but about service to God, to the Church, and to the world. The next pope must carry this mantle forward, guiding the Church into a new era of faith, hope, and love. As the Catholic Church moves toward a future defined by change and uncertainty, one of the most pressing tasks for the next pope will be engaging with the global community. The Church's influence extends far beyond the confines of Vatican City, touching lives and shaping societies on every continent. Whether addressing global injustices, fostering interfaith dialogue, or responding to humanitarian crises. The Catholic Church has a critical role to play in the international community. The question of how the next pope will engage with the world, particularly in an increasingly interconnected and complex global landscape, is one that will shape the future direction of the Church. Pope Francis's papacy has set a clear example of what it means to engage with the global community. From his pioneering efforts on environmental issues to his active involvement in international peacebuilding, Pope Francis has placed the Church at the forefront of global conversations. His encyclical Laudato Si', which calls for action on climate change, is a prime example of how the Catholic Church can influence global policy and ethical discourse. In a world increasingly divided by political, social, and environmental crises, the Pope has used his platform to advocate for systemic change and for the protection of the planet and its most vulnerable inhabitants. The next Pope will be tasked with continuing this critical work, ensuring that the Catholic Church remains a powerful voice for justice in global affairs. The challenges the world faces today are multifaceted and pressing. Climate change, economic inequality, war, and migration are just a few of the global crises that demand attention. The next pope must recognize the Church's unique position to address these issues, not just from a moral standpoint, but as an active participant in global solutions. Whether it's speaking out against environmental degradation, advocating for refugees and displaced persons, or addressing the economic disparities that affect millions, the Catholic Church has an essential role in leading these conversations. The future pope must be someone who can forge partnerships with other faith leaders, international organizations, and civil society groups to confront these challenges with hope and action. The issue of migration, in particular, will require the next pope to take a proactive stance, as millions of people are forced to flee their homes due to conflict, poverty, and climate change. The Catholic Church must advocate for compassion and human dignity in the face of political resistance. Pope Francis has been an outspoken advocate for refugees, emphasizing the need to welcome the stranger, and his example will set the tone for future papacies. The next pope must continue to challenge governments and institutions to offer protection and support to migrants, highlighting the moral imperative of solidarity and hospitality. Beyond the social and environmental concerns, the next pope will also need to engage in a more diplomatic manner with the international community. Pope Francis has demonstrated a remarkable ability to engage with world leaders, calling for peace in places like the Middle East and facilitating dialogue between conflicting parties. One of the most notable examples of his diplomatic influence was his involvement in the peace talks between the United States and Cuba, which helped pave the way for the historic normalization of relations between the two nations. As the Church continues to play an important role in global peacebuilding, the next pope must possess the diplomatic acumen to navigate complex geopolitical issues and to work with political leaders on a range of global concerns. The Church's role as a moral authority gives the pope a unique opportunity to mediate conflicts, encourage dialogue, and advocate for peace in regions torn apart by violence and unrest. Interfaith dialogue will also remain a cornerstone of the Catholic Church's engagement with the global community. Pope Francis has been widely praised for his efforts to build bridges with other religions, most notably his relationship with Islam. His 2019 trip to the United Arab Emirates, where he signed the historic document on human fraternity with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, was a major milestone in fostering understanding between Catholics and Muslims. The next pope will need to continue this work, engaging with leaders of other religious traditions to promote peace and mutual respect. In a world where religious conflict and intolerance continue to plague many societies, the Church's role in fostering interfaith dialogue is more important than ever. In addition to these global challenges, the next pope will also need to engage with the Catholic faithful in new and innovative ways. The Church's relationship with its followers has evolved over time, and the future of the Church will depend on its ability to maintain relevance in a rapidly changing world. The rise of secularism, the decline of religious observance in many parts of the world, and the influence of social media and technology all present challenges to the Church's traditional forms of engagement. The next pope will need to find ways to reach young people, particularly in regions where the Church is struggling to maintain a foothold. Digital platforms offer an unprecedented opportunity for the church to connect with a global audience. But they also pose challenges when it comes to addressing misinformation and fostering authentic dialogue. The next pope will need to be a leader who is comfortable in the digital age, using technology to engage with people in new ways while also maintaining the deep, personal connections that have always been central to the church's mission. At the same time, the future pope must find ways to address the growing concerns of Catholics around the world, as the church faces declining attendance in some areas, particularly in Europe and North America. The next pope will need to speak to the needs of a generation that is often disillusioned with organized religion. Pope Francis has made significant strides in addressing this challenge by reaching out to young people and addressing issues such as sexuality, gender equality, and the role of women in the church. The next pope will need to continue this work, ensuring that the church remains a place of inclusivity and relevance for people of all walks of life. As the world becomes more interconnected and the challenges more complex, the need for global cooperation and dialogue has never been more urgent. The next pope will have an opportunity to take the legacy of Pope Francis to new heights, engaging with the world on issues of justice, peace, and human dignity. The Catholic Church's influence in the global community remains strong, but it is the ability of the Pope to lead with compassion, humility, and a commitment to justice that will ensure the Church's continued relevance in the 21st century. In conclusion, the future Pope must be someone who understands the interconnectedness of the global community and is committed to engaging with the world's most pressing issues, whether through diplomacy, social justice, interfaith dialogue, or digital outreach. The next leader of the Catholic Church will need to embrace the global nature of the Church's mission. The future is one of opportunity and challenge, and the Catholic Church, under the leadership of the next Pope, has the potential to make a profound impact on the world. As we look toward the future of the Catholic Church and the potential transition in its leadership, it is clear that the next Pope will play a pivotal role in shaping not only the Church's direction but also its impact on the world at large. The qualities of the next Pope, their ability to engage with global issues, and their vision for the future of the Catholic community will undoubtedly influence generations to come. However, the conversation surrounding the future of the Church is not one to be left solely to theologians, cardinals, and Vatican officials. It is a conversation that involves every Catholic, every person of faith, and anyone who cares about the future of our global society. The global challenges of today, climate change, economic inequality, religious intolerance, and political unrest, demand bold, compassionate, and visionary leadership, but they also require the active participation of individuals from all walks of life. The Church's ability to address these challenges depends not only on the Pope's leadership, but on the collective action of its members. Every Catholic, regardless of where they are in the world, can contribute to the mission of the Church through prayer, advocacy, and living out the values of faith in their daily lives. As Catholics, it is important to reflect on the legacy of Pope Francis and consider how we can carry forward his work. His emphasis on humility, service to the poor, and care for the environment has been a model for what it means to live out the gospel in the modern world. Whether it's volunteering for social justice causes, advocating for the marginalized, or supporting policies that promote peace and sustainability, each person can make a difference in building a more compassionate and just world. Beyond personal action, it is also essential to engage in the larger conversation about the future of the Church. As Catholics, we are called to participate in the life of the Church, not as passive observers, but as active members who help shape its future. This means engaging with local parishes, supporting the clergy, and contributing to the broader theological and social discussions about the role of the Church in society. For those of us in the digital age, this engagement can also happen online, through social media, podcasts, blogs, and other platforms, where ideas can be shared and meaningful dialogues can take place. It's also vital to recognize that the future of the Church is not just about leadership within the Vatican. It is about the renewal of faith and the Church's mission in communities worldwide. For the Church to remain relevant, it must address the spiritual and material needs of people at every level. The next Pope will be charged with leading this renewal, but it is a renewal that must involve everyone: the laity, clergy, religious orders, and international leaders. The Church's global mission is vast, and it cannot succeed without the full participation of the entire community. For those who are unsure of where to begin, start by reflecting on how you can be a beacon of light in your own community. Volunteer at your local parish, support a charitable organization, or speak out on issues that matter to you. As the Church faces the uncertainties of the future, one thing remains clear: each individual's contribution, no matter how small, can make a significant impact, whether through tangible acts of service or through prayer and reflection. Each action builds towards a greater movement of love and justice. As the next pope prepares to take on the immense responsibility of leading the Church, the faithful must come together to pray for wisdom, guidance, and strength. Our prayerful support will help the next leader navigate the complexities of the modern world and ensure that the Church remains a beacon of hope and faith in an ever-changing landscape. Moreover, as we contemplate the potential candidates for the papacy, it is essential to consider how we, as the global Catholic community, can contribute to the selection of a leader who embodies the values we cherish: compassion, justice, humility, and a deep commitment to serving the world. While the decision ultimately rests with the College of Cardinals, it is important for us to remain engaged, informed, and prayerful in the process, trusting that God will guide the Church's leaders to make the right choice. In this time of transition, we are invited to reflect on the ways we can contribute to the ongoing work of the Church. Let us not wait passively for the future to unfold. Instead, let us actively shape it through our actions, prayers, and faithfulness to the mission of the Church. Let us continue to build the Church as a place of refuge, a voice for justice, and a light to the world. We each have a role to play in this journey, and together, we can help usher in a new chapter for the Catholic Church, one marked by renewal, hope, and a profound commitment to the values of Christ. If this discussion resonates with you, share your thoughts, experiences, and prayers for the future of the Church. Join the conversation and help shape the direction of this global institution. Together, we can make a lasting impact on the Catholic Church and on the world at large. Share this article with others who care about the future of the Church, and let's unite in prayer, advocacy, and action for a more just and compassionate world. Let's move forward with hope, faith, and the determination to make a difference. As the Catholic Church stands on the precipice of a new chapter, the legacy of Pope Francis remains a beacon of hope, reform, and compassion. His papacy, marked by a commitment to humility, service to the marginalized, and the promotion of environmental justice, has reshaped the Church's global influence. Yet, with the inevitable transition to new leadership, the questions of how to continue his work, who will lead the Church forward, and how the Church will adapt to the challenges of the modern world are both pressing and profound. The next pope will inherit not only a Church grappling with changing societal norms, but also a world in the midst of unprecedented challenges: climate crises, economic inequality, and the erosion of social and moral values. The process of selecting the next leader of the Catholic Church carries immense significance. It is not just about choosing a figurehead. It is about selecting someone who will carry forward the values that Pope Francis championed while navigating the evolving needs of the global community. The candidates for the papacy, whether they are seasoned diplomats like Cardinal Pietro Parolin, advocates for the poor like Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, or leaders in justice like Cardinal Peter Turkson, each represent a different vision for the future of the Church. Their leadership styles and priorities will shape the direction of the Church in the years to come. Pope Francis's legacy has fundamentally changed the way the Church engages with the world. His emphasis on social justice, care for the poor, and a pastoral approach to leadership has broadened the Church's role in the world stage. He has brought the Church into the public eye not just as a religious institution, but as an active participant in global issues. His commitment to addressing issues such as climate change, the refugee crisis, and economic injustice has inspired a new generation of Catholics to see their faith not just in terms of personal piety, but as a call to action in the world. However, this legacy is not without its challenges. The Church faces significant trials: declining attendance in the West, the rising influence of secularism, and deep divisions within its ranks. The next pope must not only continue the work of reform, but also find ways to unite the Church and guide it through these turbulent times. In many ways, the future of the Church will depend on its ability to evolve while remaining rooted in its core teachings and traditions. But even as the Church contemplates these challenges, it must also reflect on the immense opportunities for renewal. The global reach of the Catholic Church remains vast, and its mission to serve the poor, promote peace, and care for the planet is more urgent than ever. The future of the Church lies in its ability to adapt, to listen to the needs of its people, and to remain true to the principles of love, justice, and compassion that are at its heart. As Catholics, we are all part of this journey. We each have a role to play in ensuring that the Church remains a beacon of hope and a force for good in the world. Whether through our prayers, our actions, or our engagement with the issues of the day, we can all contribute to building a Church that continues to fulfill its mission in the modern world. As we look ahead, we can take solace in the knowledge that the Catholic Church has faced many challenges in its long history and has always emerged stronger for them. The election of the next pope is not just the beginning of a new papacy. It is the beginning of a new chapter in the Church's story, a chapter that will undoubtedly be shaped by the challenges of the present, but also by the hope and faith of those who continue to believe in the Church's mission. Together, we can look forward to a future that honors the past while embracing the opportunities and challenges of the future. Through prayer, service, and unity, we can ensure that the Church remains a light to the world and a place of refuge, healing, and justice for all. As the College of Cardinals prepares to make its decision, we must remain prayerful, hopeful, and committed to the journey ahead. Let us take with us the lessons of Pope Francis's papacy and apply them to our own lives as we work toward building a more just, compassionate, and faith-filled world. With the right leadership and the continued engagement of the global Catholic community, the Church will face the future with courage and hope, ready to meet the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. The journey continues, and it is a journey that belongs to all of us. Let us move forward together, with faith in our hearts and a commitment to shaping a better world for all.